welcome to our channel. My name is Tracy. I'm the keeper of the home here at 40 Farms. That just sounded awful. Good morning, y'all. Welcome to our channel. My name is Tracy. I'm the keeper of the home here at 40 Farms. And today's video, I want to talk to y'all about how to preserve your food. That can be a lot of different methods, and we'll get into that. But if you want some ways to preserve food for longer shelf life, and stocking up your pantries and your freezers, that's what we're here to talk about today. So y'all just stay tuned. Okay, so like I said, there is a lot of reasons why you might want to preserve your food, and there's a lot of different ways to preserve your food. Let's cover some of the reasons why you might want to preserve your food. For one, back in the old days, they didn't have refrigeration. So they had to be very creative of how they preserved their food and their methods to make their food last longer. And since they didn't have refrigeration, let's say they grew these crops and they grew all these vegetables and things. You can only eat fresh vegetables. You can only keep them for so long until they start going bad. So the pioneers had to think of ways to come up with preserving their foods. And before jars and things were created to where you could preserve things in jars, like pressure canning or water bathing like we have today, I've read some methods where they would use containers or use bowls or pots and pans. When jars came along, they would pack things in jars and keep them like in their well houses after they dug a well, and they would build like a well house around it. And especially like milk, butter, cheese, things like that that had to be refrigerated, they would store in their well houses to where they would stay cold. That was before refrigeration came about. Then some ways that they would keep what they couldn't eat fresh, they would have to come up with a way to preserve their food. That's where drying came in handy at. They would dry a lot of their meats. They would cure a lot of their meats. Like soak them in salt in barrels for long periods of time. Then they would just get it out, cut chunks off of it, cook it up, fry it up, whatever. Smokehouses. They would hang things in smokehouses. You can research those. I'm not for sure how those things work, but that's an idea to check into. What are some other ways they would preserve things? Of course, then the ages came along where jars became available. Jars came on the market for sale. They weren't like your jars of today where you have the lids and the rings. They had lids on them, but some kind of rubber seals on them, and like a little clasp to where it would close the lid down and hold it. And they would dry things and store them in those jars. I think back in the pioneer days, they even did an older method of water bathing. And I can remember my grandmother and great-grandmother talking about water bathing, taking like a wash tub and, you know, what they bathe their kids in, you know, and take their wash tub, take it outside, build a fire, put some kind of crate over it or something that would be up above the fire, set the wash tub on top, fill that baby full of water, and put their jars in there, and then boil them, which is basically what a water bath is, just an old-timier method. We'll get into the modern-day method in just a minute. But old-timers had to be very creative in how they preserved food, because what they grew, they needed to make it stretch for the whole winter, because this is what they lived off of. only certain things were in supply certain times of the year. So what you grew or what you killed and hunted is what you ate, okay? So they had to be creative. Modern times have come about, safer methods, so we have a different safer methods of preservation today. I'll start off by getting a couple of them out of the way, because I'll spend more time on freezing and pressure canning and water bathing than I will some of these others. We haven't gotten into dehydrating. We have a dehydrator, but we're playing around with it. We're mostly doing like jerky, deer jerky, you know, things like that. We've tried to dehydrate some, I think bananas and apples before, and we couldn't get it to turn out right, so we just kind of put it up for a little bit, said we'd try again next year. So we learned some more about it. So this year we may get into that some more. I preferably don't like a lot of things that's been dehydrated and have to rely on water to rehydrate them to get them back to a fresh state, because the texture and the taste is probably going to be a whole lot different. So that's another reason why we haven't gotten into that a lot. Like we'll probably just stick with our dehydrator for jerkies and things like that. Now we might do some fruits for like trail mix purposes. I like trail mix, and I like to put dried fruits and berries in there. So we might could do that. We don't use the dehydrating method a lot, so I'm not going to cover a lot about that. But if that's something that interests you, it does have a longer shelf-stable life, because you take the dehydrated products and you can store them in jars or in Ziploc bags. And if you put them in bags, you might have to have some kind of oxygenizer. I don't know the chemistry about those, but it helps keep moisture out of things that you store in bags. So you can store them in jars for a good long shelf life. So that's an option. Smokehouse curing method, we have never tried that. I don't know if we would get into that. That might be something we can just play around with later, just to see if we can do it. I'm the kind of person that if I see something that I really want to try, I'm going to try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's not for the sake that we haven't tried. A lot of the old-time methods just interest me. If I could have been born at any other time period, I'll tell you right now, I could have lived in the pioneer days. I could have lived in the 1800s. Well, except maybe for shower and bathroom, because that's just like my... Yeah, I gotta have my shower and I gotta have my bathroom, okay? So, yeah, I could have still done it. Okay, I could have still done it. I love cooking from scratch. I've never cooked over an open fire, though. That I'm gonna have to learn that. I have iron skillets coming out of my ears, okay? And I'm scared to use them sometimes. I've never cooked over an open fire, but I might be willing to try. My thing is to learn how to cook biscuits over an open fire, y'all. That is one of my things I want to learn how to do. I'll get around to it. I got a bucket list this long, y'all, maybe longer. I got a bucket list of things I just want to try, simply for the fact of I want to try. It interests me. My great aunt on my papa's side, she was the lye soap making queen. Yes, she was the lye soap making queen. She made lye soap. Y'all, there's nothing like old-timey lye soap. Let me tell y'all right now, your skin is so... All this extra information is free, y'all, so we'll get to the other stuff in a minute. I just have to throw this in there. What pops in my head a lot of times just comes out. I can't stop it. Lye soap. Soft. Washes your laundry. You don't need a fabric softener. Oh my gosh, the fresh smell takes out grease and oils. Lye soap, y'all. I'm going to try that one time too. I have my grandparents' big outdoor, you can't see my arms, big outdoor iron kettle that goes over an open fire, where they would like wash their laundry in and stuff, boil their laundry. And oh my gosh, y'all, I got to do. Now see, that just gave me something else. I got to do this. I got to do some lye soap. We tried it one time, but we tried it inside in aluminum pots, and the soap was okay, but it didn't solidify as well as and cure as well as what I had wanted it to. But that was only the first time. Me and my mother tried it, and that was just the first time. We should have tweaked. We should have kept playing with it. We just didn't have time. But that's one thing I want to try. But let's get back to what we were talking about. I'm sorry, y'all. I chase rabbits sometimes. Smoking. We might not get into that. My husband uses his smoker grill. When we want to cook something, he'll just smoke it on the grill. We don't smoke it and store it. There is a way to do that. I'm not for sure how to do that, but you can check into it if that interests you. So the main methods that I use is, of course, let me say this. You don't have to grow a garden or hunt or fish or raise your own meat, okay, and butcher it. You don't have to have any of those things in order to preserve food. Preserving food is you can go get your food from anywhere, okay? Farmer's market, the grocery store, a butcher's shop, y'all. You can go get your products and bring them home and preserve them. Now, when you preserve them, you will need some essentials. You will need the tools that you have to have for that. For what you need for pressure canning, you're going to need those supplies. For what you're going to need for water bathing, you're going to need those supplies. What you're going to need for freezing, you're going to need those supplies. So you will need to do your research when you get into these things. Let's get freezing out of the way. There's two things that you need to remember when you're preserving food. Number one, it is not going to turn out right after you've either pressure canned it, water bathed it, or froze it as it would be if it was fresh, okay? You're not going to get the same texture and taste from raw broccoli and cauliflower as you are a broccoli and cauliflower that has been frozen, okay? It's not going to be the same taste and texture, okay? There's certain foods that cannot be pressure canned or water bath. Let's say broccoli is one of those. Do not try to pressure can or water bath broccoli. For some reason, when you pressure can or water bath broccoli in water in a jar, the chemicals or whatever is in broccoli leaches out into the water, and you will get a chemical taste in your mouth. It is nasty. So freezing broccoli is going to be your best bet. You're going to need to know two things to determine how you want to preserve your food, what method you want to use. Taste preference. And texture. Some things are going to taste different after they've been pressure canned or water bathed than they do if they've been frozen. Okay? The next thing these are neck and neck decisions, y'all. The next decision you're going to have to make is storage space. Okay? You may really like the texture of something that has been frozen versus something that has been pressure canned or water bath, but you may not have the space. Okay? Let's say you don't have a big freezer. Then you're probably not going to need to get into the option of freezing method. Okay? You may have to go with canning water bathing or pressure canning. You may have more storage space as far as pantries, cool, dry pantries, more than you've got freezer space. I think I'm just repeating myself. Okay, so long story short, you're going to have to pick which method according to space, okay? If you've got a big old freezer and not enough storage space, there you go. I just had them backwards again. If you've got a big freezer, not enough pantry space, then you're going to go with the freezing method, okay? But storage and how you preserve it and taste preference, you're going to have to balance the two, okay? Let me give you an example. You really, really, really like broccoli. You're going to have to freeze it, but you don't have a lot of space. I would suggest looking into buying a used freezer that someone is selling and maybe finding a place for it. You can even put a freezer out in a little outdoor shed. It doesn't have to be in your kitchen or in your utility room. Find a place for that, baby. If you can find a freezer that is thrifty enough for you, economical, go get that thing and make a place for it, y'all. Do a smaller scale of freezing. If you've got a smaller freezer, just lower scale it. Maybe just go get a couple of heads at a time when they're on sale and freeze it, process it, and then put it in your freezer. Just lower scale. Okay, if you've got this, and that goes with canning too. If you've got a little bit of space, a little bit of pantry space, just do it at a lower scale. This is how we do ours. We grow a garden, okay? But like I said, you don't have to have access to a garden and butchering your own meats and growing your own meat, hunting and fishing, okay? You can go buy your supplies. I'll give you an example. I garden, but I also buy things from the store. I have tried 4 attempts, 4 different years, 4 different ways to grow carrots. I cannot grow carrots, y'all. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's our soil. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but I cannot grow carrots. So I will go to the grocery store and I will buy my carrots. I will buy them when they go on sale. And I will stock up. I will buy probably as much as they will let me. They will limit me, or I will just buy so many pounds, okay, to not be stingy, okay? I can always go back and get some more. So I will bring home carrots, the long carrots. A lot of times they'll sell them for 99 cents or maybe $1.99 for a big bag. Okay, y'all, that's not bad. I brought home about, I don't know how many pounds it was, but I think I brought home maybe like 10 bags of carrots, and I washed them all. I peeled them. I cut the ends off. I sliced them babies up. I filled up me some jars, and I water bathed them. I can freeze or pressure can carrots. Doesn't matter to me. Depends on how I'm going to cook them. That's another thing that I'm talking about. Realizing your textures are going to be different and how you're going to cook them. If I want just some steamed carrots, maybe just like fresh out of the jar, and all I got to do is heat them up just a little bit, I'll pressure can a bunch. If I'm going to be throwing some in a soup or a stew, I will cut them up raw, throw them in vacuum sealer bags, and throw them in the freezer. They're crunchier, they're harder, so they will take longer cooking time. So I will freeze some to go in soups and roasts and stews because they're going to take a longer cooking time. So see, the difference in your textures is going to come into play too. After you've pressure canned carrots, they're softer, mushier. All you have to do is pop open a jar, heat them up, and you're good to go. Not a long cooking time, heating up time. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. Let's see. Something else that I don't. Oh, we buy beans. buy 10-pound bags at the store. We've grown butter beans before. We've grown peas. But y'all, I'm just going to tell y'all something. Black-eyed peas, purple hull peas, the labor and the sweat and the long growing period, and then the time it takes to sit down and shell and wash and rinse and stuff like that, just to get all that work to get like just maybe one bowl full. 5 long rows might get me like just half a bucket full. That's a lot of work, y'all, just for a half of a 5-gallon bucket. I'm just going to tell you, look at do your pros and cons list. Do pros like versus what is something I do when I'm weighing pros and cons? Labor. Since I grow a garden, labor is going to be right up at the top. Is this going to be worth my labor, my sweat, my cost of fertilizer, my time for maintenance, the harvesting, picking, the processing? Which is going to be easier? Which is more cost efficient? Y'all, to be honest with y'all, I can go get a 10-pound bag of dried pinto beans for a couple of dollars versus going and buying the seeds to plant. You've already got dried bean seeds, okay? All you're doing with the dried bean seeds, you're just growing more, okay? The cost of fertilizer, the labor, the sweat, the picking, the shelling, time. It just came to me. Time management, y'all. Pros and cons. Is it economical? Is it time worthy? Is it labor worthy? Versus quicker and going and buying it cheaper at the store, bringing it home and doing it. There you go. Think about that. I do pinto beans. I go to the grocery store, I buy them, I will bring them home, and I will pressure can them. Okay? Potatoes, y'all. I can grow potatoes. Yes, I can. I can grow potatoes. However, here's my cons and pros list. For the labor, the sweat, the cost of the potato eyes, the seeds, the slips. I think it's called slips on sweet potatoes. But the eyes on the potatoes that you plant to make a bigger plant to get more potatoes, okay? You have to go buy those. Or you can take the eyes and cut the eyes off of some potatoes. Y'all know the little sprout. I'm going to give you a little garden tip here. You know the little sprouts that comes on potatoes when you leave them in your cabinet too long? Okay, those are eyes of the potatoes. You can cut that out and plant that and grow a plant. There you go. That's how you get your potato seed. Okay, so the difference between the two on potatoes is the cost of the seeds, the labor, the fertilizer, the maintenance, the digging up. Oh my gosh, that's labor just in itself, y'all. And then for you not to get the yield that you wanted, that you should have had for about 5 rows that are like 75 foot long, and you only get half of that yield of what you should have, it wasn't worth it to me. I go buy potatoes, 20-pound bags at the grocery store when they run them on sale for $2.99 a bag. I will bring them babies home and process them. I bought 60 pounds one time before, and I did my potatoes 2 different ways. I have a video on that, actually, how I process my potatoes. I will pressure can some, and I will freeze some. So, carrots, pinto beans, potatoes, I go buy those at the store, y'all. I did my pros and cons. I had to think about those. Economical, labor, time management. Sometimes you're just going to have to do that. If I can grow grow it, I will, and process it, and I enjoy it. But if I have to go buy it, I will do that. Another thing I think about when I'm deciding how I'm going to preserve something is how I'm going to cook it and how it's going to taste. My potatoes, I'll give you an example about those. I will pressure can some. Potatoes have to be pressure canned. We'll get into that in a minute. What things need to be pressure canned and what things need to be water bathed. Okay. I will can potatoes in the pressure canner, and I will freeze some. The ones in my jars that I can, I love to use for just opening them up, putting them in a frying pan with some bacon grease or some oil, and frying potatoes. Or I can just open up a jar and use them in potato salad. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm a rebel canner. I will try things different ways. I can do 2 different methods with my potatoes. And the last time I did potatoes, I did them differently. And I liked the texture and the flavor so much better. I will be going with that method. And I explained that in my canning potatoes video. So if you want to check that out, I will link that down below and let y'all see how I do that. It's just a new method. Instead of doing it in water, it's dry canning them. You don't put water in your jars. I'll explain in my video, but y'all, I love the texture so much better, and the taste was so much better. You didn't get that starchy kind of taste that you get when you can potatoes. I will take that 60 pounds of potatoes I bought. I canned 30. I froze 30. And I've got a video on how I preserve our potatoes using the flash freeze method. So on the ones that I flash freeze, I use those for French fries. I use those for, we'll cut them in rounds, slices, and use them for either frying rounds or scalloped potatoes. You can dice some up. You can shred some for hash browns. Y'all, you can take a potato and cut it so many different ways and cook it so many different ways. It's unreal. Okay? So there's some things that I will do both. There's some things that I will stick to one way of doing it, like broccoli. I will not can broccoli. I explained that earlier. It's just the chemistry in broccoli. You better freeze it. And anytime you do freeze vegetables, flash freeze them first. I have just taken like broccoli and cauliflower before and washed it, dried it off, threw it in a vacuum sealer bag, and it didn't turn out so right. You can cook your flavor into it. That's okay, but some things you can't. So I learned. I was like, it was bitter when you try to go back and cook with it. When you freeze something, it's going to, when you defrost it, that's where your texture is coming in at. When you freeze something and then you turn around and you defrost it, it's mushy, limp. It's not crispy like it's going to be if you go out and pick it out in the garden and just cut it up and eat it. It's not going to be like that. It'll have a little bit of a bitter taste to it, but I learned that you need to flash freeze those things first. So what I did was broccoli, cauliflower, my potatoes turned out better this way too. Other things that I'm trying to do this off the top of my head that I flash freeze. You bring it home, you wash it, you cut it up, you blanch it. That's how this is the first process of flash freezing. You blanch it a little bit. You can put it in a pot of hot water, put it on the stove, blanch it for about 3 minutes is what they say. You're boiling it, basically, just for about 3 minutes. Then you're going to take it out. You're going to put it in an ice bath to stop the cooking process. Then set it somewhere, tea tea towel or something to dry it off with, paper towels, pat them dry, put them out, lay them out on cookie sheets, open, you know, don't cover them up, just lay them out on cookie sheets, put them in the freezer and flash freeze them. After they have gotten frozen, you can leave them overnight or you can leave them in there a few hours till you feel comfortable enough that they're frozen enough that you can take them off the cookie sheets, transfer them into storage freezer bags or vacuum seal bags and vacuum seal them up. It takes that bitter flavor out if you blanch it first. That's called flash freezing, okay? A lot of your processing plants do that. Of course, they have machines that does a flash freeze process better. What is that called? And I've thought about checking into it. I can't think of it offhand. I may check into that. There's a machine that you can get. You put your things in there, and it will like flash freeze, kind of like for you. Then you can vacuum seal everything, or you can store it in something else. I may check into that. But anyway, I do my potato, I do my broccoli, my cauliflower. I do my potatoes this way, except for the ones that I'm pressure canning. The ones that go, laundry's done. The ones that go in the freezer, I flash freeze. I will flash freeze my French fries, my potato rounds. You can do hash browns that way, but just be careful because, you know, they're all shredded. So that, yeah. But I do that. That's in my video, my preserving how I flash freeze. I won't go into detail on all of that. But that's just kind of like the basics. So just know your taste preference and how the texture is going to be versus how you do these. There are some things that I will only pressure can or water bath. Let's talk about, let me go back to this. I'm sorry, I forgot something on the freezing. What you're going to need for freezing, and I'll be done with freezing. What you're going to need for freezing is, we used to just put things in Ziploc bags. There's differences between your Ziploc bags. That's why they call them freezer bags or storage bags or sandwich bags. Sandwich, self-explanatory. Picnic lunches. Storage bags is if you're just going to store something just for a short period of time, either in your pantry or your refrigerator. Freezer is what you want if you're going to freeze your food, okay, and put it in the freezer for a long period of time. It's a thicker plastic to where it keeps moisture from getting in there to creating ice crystals or creating freezer burn. Now, even though you do put something in a freezer Ziploc bag in the freezer, you've still got a limited amount of time to use it before it can start getting freezer burn inside the bag. So just keep an eye on it and keep things rotated. That's where we purchased a vacuum sealer. Any of our products that we have bought to do these things with, I will list some names and the products and stuff down in the description box below. So you can know what to look for and just do your own research and pick out the one that's best for you. We have two different vacuum sealers. We have a big one that we do for meats, big meats like turkeys or hindquarters of deer, Boston butts, you know, the big roast, things like that. You're going to need a heavier duty vacuum sealer and bigger bags. Then we have a small scale where that's where I do my vegetables. Broccoli, cauliflower, squash, zucchini, onions, peppers, carrots. I've got some more things I freeze. Y'all, I'm trying to visualize what's in my freezer at the moment. Okay, sweet potatoes. Okay, I do sweet potatoes either or. I can freeze them or I pressure can them. So we purchased a vacuum sealer. The vacuum sealer sucks all the air out of it and creates that vacuum seal where the ice crystals don't get in there, and freezer burn, it takes it longer to get freezer burn, okay? You can keep things in the freezer in a vacuum seal bag for like 6 months or longer. Just keep an eye on it, keep it rotated, okay? So I will Food Saver, you can check into those. They have their own company. You can look up the brand Food Saver, the company, and they have all different sizes, all different models, accessories. You can find vacuum sealers is what they're called, but there's an actual brand named Food Saver. But they're vacuum sealers. You can find them on Amazon too. Okay, we're done with freezing. Let's get to pressure canning and water bathing. Pressure canning and water bathing, they kind of use the same, they do the same thing, just at a lower scale. Water bathing is at a lower scale versus pressure canning. Water bathing is for higher acidic foods like fruits, tomatoes. Tomatoes is acidic, so they have to be water bath, not pressure canned. We grow tomatoes, and I am doing I'm putting up whole tomatoes. I am putting up spaghetti sauce, enchilada sauce, marinara sauce for our pizzas, and salsa. So we grow a lot of tomatoes in order for me to do all this with my tomatoes and stock our shelf in our pantry. So you have to use a water bath for tomatoes. High acidic foods, your pickles. Don't do pickles in a pressure canner because it cooks them for longer at a higher temperature. You lose your crispiness for your pickles. Okay, do a water bath, lower your minutes, and use pickle crisp in your brine. Okay, or in your jar. You can research that because I've had to tweak how I do pickles because they lose their crispiness even when I do them in a water bath, y'all. I've never purchased pickle crisp before, so I think the next time I ever have to do pickles, I'm going to get some of that. Now, my mother-in-law, she didn't pressure can hers. She didn't water bath hers. It's more like a fermenting method. If it's something that is fermented, you may not have to water bath as much. Fermenting is a little bit, that's another method, y'all. Fermenting. Sauerkraut comes to mind. Fermenting. Pickles comes to mind. She did her pickles. I never watched her do her pickles. I should have, because I could have gleaned a lot of information. But she did write down her procedure for me. So I may use her procedure next time. I believe she just put them in jars with the hot brine after they were soaked. I believe she soaked her pickles for so many days. And then when she put them in jars, she used a hot brine and put them in jars, put the seals on, turned them upside down, and the pressure and the heat sealed the jars. That's another method that they use. You have to be careful with that one, and you have to know what you're doing and keep an eye on your jars and recognize if a jar seals or not. We'll get into that. Recognize if a jar is sealed or not to know if you need to store it or not, and then how soon to use it. That can be kind of dangerous. People who's been doing it for a long time just know what to look for and know what to do. Tomatoes, jams, jellies, pickles, water bath, because they're more acidic. The difference between a pressure canner and a water bath. Let me see if I can explain the dynamics, I guess, or the chemistry, I guess. Okay. You're both going to use jars. They're both going to use jars. They both heat the jars to create an airtight seal. The difference is water bathing only heats up the water to a certain temperature, boiling water temperature. You can only get water so hot, I guess, okay? pressure, and it will still create that vacuum seal in the jar, and it will heat up the food at a safe temperature to where it has sterilized the food and create an airtight seal in the jar to where the jar will seal. Pressure canning does this same process, but at a pounds pressure per pounds and a lot less cooking time. I hope you understand that. Google the difference between pressure canning and water bathing, and it will explain it better than I probably can. Pressure canning does it faster. It uses more pounds of pressure. It cooks the food at a higher temperature inside the jars and seals your jars, because if the food is not cooked at a certain temperature or a little above pressure canning and water bathing, you can create botulism. Botulism is like it can make you very sickly if you get botulism in your jars. Mold in your jars. If a seal doesn't seal properly, you get mold in your jars. It spreads through the food. It can make you deathly sick. So you can research botulism and realize how it can be avoided and what to look for. So that's kind of the difference between a pressure canner and a water bath. There's certain things that needs to be pressure canned, certain things that needs to be water bath. Lower acidic foods like meats, vegetables like beans, peas, green beans, corn, can be pressure canned. If you're not for sure whether or not it can be pressure canned or water bath, I will link down below. Purchase you a ball canning book or a ball preserving book. I'll try to find some and I'll link them down below. You can find them in Amazon. Mine is an old one. It's called Ball Preserving. Ball Blue Book Preserving and Canning. I think that's the name of it. But it's an older copy, and I'm having trouble finding it even on Amazon. But it's a book that is put out for pressure canning and water bathing, and what needs to be pressure canned, what needs to be water bath, pounds per pressure, how long to pressure cook them for or water bath them for. It's got all kinds of recipes in there that you can follow. It follows the Home Preservation Association guidelines for safe canning to prevent botulism and to keep you from getting sick, longer shelf life. Purchase one of those books. If you have any questions, excuse me. Now, I can say this. Before pressure canners came along, like I mentioned earlier from the pioneer women, they would take their wash tubs. When jars became available, containers became available, they would take their wash tubs. I have heard of people water bathing corn, green beans, but the process time is so much longer. I believe water bathing green beans would take, I believe, 3 to 4 hours of constant boiling water, which means you're going to have to stay by that pot for 3 to 4 hours, keeping that water filled and boiling. So that's time consuming to me. So pressure canning, okay? You can water bath some things. It's just going to take longer. So it would be worth your money to invest in a pressure canner. There's all different kinds of pressure. Now let's get into this. Let's talk about where to find these products, okay? I have pressure canners that belong to my grandmother's. So I have the old ones. I have a semi-new one, modern one, that uses a gauge on it that tells me my pressure. My older ones from my two grandmothers has the little bobbler on the top that tells me my pressure. And you just put that on top of the vent. I go into more detail about how a pressure canner works and a water bath canner works in my canning videos. I believe I explain it in my canning potatoes, canning carrots, how a pressure canner works, and how to use a pressure canner. I go into more depth of that. You can find pressure canners now that's more modernized. Y'all, I was terrified when my husband got me my first pressure canner. I grew up all my life listening to, I got to get comfier. I've grew up all my life watching my grandmother's pressure can in the kitchen. I've heard that little jiggler all day long, every day in the summer. Oh my gosh, y'all. But to open up them jars in that winter time, it was so good. I was terrified. I knew I wanted a garden. When we finally got established, when he got out of the Marine Corps, we got established into a place where I could have a garden and learn from my mother-in-law, put my childhood memories back to use. I'd forgot a bunch of things. First time I ever used my pressure canner, y'all. I had some jars blow up. But it was something that I did out of stupidity that I should have known not to do. And common sense, okay? But no question is ever dumb enough to ask somebody, okay? If you're not for sure, ask somebody. If I would have said, hey, Nanny, if I pour some cold water on these hot steaming jars, you think they're going to buzz? Yeah. You know what she would have told me? You better not. So, yeah, she would have told me real quick. I didn't think to ask, y'all. So I just did it. What happened was, I don't think I put enough water in my pressure canner and put the lid on for the, to start the processing. And it didn't look like my green beans inside the jar got done. So I'm like, okay, I got to start this process all over again, which they tell you, you can either, if you've got some jars that don't seal, you'll have to go through your processing all over again. Just maybe cut down your minutes because they're already kind of halfway cooked, okay? You don't want to scorch them inside the jar. But it didn't look like my green beans was all the way done, so I was going to have to go through the process all over again. So I let it completely get all the air out and come to a natural vent release, natural air release. Took the lid off, and I was like, well, that's the problem. All my water evaporated out. Mind you, y'all, these jars were still hot, scorching hot, and I had this bright idea. Well, I'll just add some water to it. I got cold water, hot scalding jars. Boy, the minute that water hit that first cold jar, it was a chain reaction. Pow, pow, pow. Jars exploded. 7 jars of green beans, y'all, exploded almost in my face. I got out of the way in enough time, or I would have had shards of glass in my eyes and on my face. I know this because I was still picking shard pieces of glass and cleaning green beans off of my ceiling. Yes, they exploded that bad. And I was digging glass out of everything. Cleaning green beans up out of my floor. It was a mess, y'all. I said, never again will I touch a pressure canner. So, years later, we moved, had a chance for a garden again, and to do some pressure canning. And I had watched my mother-in-law all summer long. And I'm like, y'all, if she can do it, I can do it. So I'm like, I told my husband, I said, I'm doing it again. I'm getting my pressure canner out again. And he's like, just don't do what you did last time. I said, yo, you ain't got to tell me twice. I learned my lesson that time, honey. So I'm like, I got to do this for the sake of not being defeated. I do not like being defeated. I will either try it again or I won't, okay? It depends on how bad it kicks my butt. And I was bound and determined I was going to learn this. So I got with her. I watched her some more a few times. I got comfortable with it. I sat down. I read my manual. Y'all, if you get a pressure canner, read your manuals. All pressure canners do not work the same. And the older ones work differently than the newer ones, okay? They have safer lid construction to where some of them don't explode. Y'all, there's been people that have said that their pressure canners, the lids have exploded off of them and don't know why. It could have been a faulty seal. It could have been the lid was not put on there right. Over the years, they have created more safety features on their pressure canners. And now they have, like, the older ones, I don't think has one. But the newer ones have, like, a more safety feature on it. It's got, like, this little valve that will pop up and release some of the pressure out of the canner if it reaches a dangerous level. It's a better safety feature, and your lid won't explode off of your pressure canner, okay? Accidents have happened, but don't let that stop you from trying. I didn't let it stop me from trying. It took me years later. I think it was like 10 years later before I ever decided I wanted to try that again. So, I'm not today, Satan. We're going to do this. So, I made the decision to get it back out. And I read my owner's manual. I wanted to make sure I followed everything to the T, because you really need to do that. Modern ones have got better safety features on them than your old ones. Please read your owner's manual first. Foremost, read that thing first, okay? Check for what it says to check for, okay? I did all that. I went through all the motions, all the steps, and I got comfortable with using my pressure canner, so comfortable to the point now that I got so many pressure canners, old and new, that I can run 2 pressure canners at a time, have another one sitting over here for backup. I ain't that good, y'all. I still get a little nervous, y'all. I do. I'm not going to lie to you about it. I still get a little nervous. I don't like canning. If anybody's in the kitchen, I'm like, get out of the kitchen. Get out of the kitchen in case any accidents, okay? I don't like anybody in there. I'm afraid granddaughters are going to touch the canner, get near the stove, back off. I try to do it when nobody's there. So I got more comfortable. I got pressure canners running, coming and going. I got an assembly line. I will have one on the stove. I'll have another one over here ready to go on the stove. When this one comes off and I set it on the counter to cool off, then I got another one ready after this one. So I got a circle going, y'all. I got an assembly line going. I've gotten that good. Figure out which kind that you want. Like I said, they're upgrading them. They've got better features. Now they have some where they've got like the handles that comes up and goes over the lid, and then you screw each one down. Honey, that lid ain't going nowhere. It ain't going nowhere. There's different models. I've got old ones. I've got new. I've got 30-something-year-old pressure canners. Sorry, y'all. I'm beginning to get hoarse. And then I wouldn't mind investing in a newer model that's even safer. Okay, that's pressure canners. The equipment that you're going to need is the same that you're going to need with water bathing. Water bathing is just I've even used a couple of aluminum stock pots for water bathing, small quantities, maybe like 2 or 3 jars, because that's all that would fit in an aluminum stock pot from Walmart. I've got like 4 of those. I'm so sorry, y'all. I've got like 4 of those. And I was doing some, canning some sauerkraut. And, because I wanted more shelf-stable life. You don't have to can sauerkraut. I just wanted longer shelf life, and I wanted my jars to seal. So I water bathed them. And I used those. Or I've got a big enamel. It's thicker. Water bath quality. It's an enamel one, and it's heavier. And it'll do like 7 jars. How you water bath is, you put, and I explained this on one of my, I think it's processing my tomatoes. I explain how water bath works. You just put your jars in there, cover your jar, even cover the jars with water. You want your jars in a water bath underwater, lids and all. You want the water coming over your lids. That'll help create pressure on top of the lid to pull the air out and suction that lid down, okay? Water bathing is just boiling your food inside a jar to sterilize that food, bring it up to that temperature that is safe to eat, and airtight that seal on the jar, okay? Pressure canners just do it at pounds per pressure, no less water, faster, higher temperature in the jar. That's it. Yeah, but know which ones. You can't just get a pressure canner for all your food. So if you're going to can anything, you got to know which one to use, whether you're going to use a pressure canner or a water bath canner. I have both. Put you back a little budget and have pressure canner or canning supplies, y'all. Let's get into canning equipment. I'm going to tell y'all, there should have been 11 commandments in the Bible. Let me tell y'all what that 11th commandment should have been. Lord, you should have wrote this on the tablets of stone and given them to Moses to be passed down to all the generations to get to us. Never throw canning jars in the trash. Never. Thou shalt not throw canning jars in the trash. That's just a sin. Unless it's cracked, nicked, or broke. Okay? Never. Y'all, they cost too much. Okay? Mason jars, ball canning jars, Harvest, Kerr. Do not throw those babies away. If someone gives you some jars of food that they have canned, please, y'all, common courtesy and love, bring those jars back, preferably washed and sterilized. Bring those jars back. Throw the bands, the rings, and the lids away, but bring those jars back. Y'all, I have jars stacked in a building. You don't throw them away. You bring me any kind of jar. I have inherited jars, y'all. They are reusable for year after year after year after year. Now, each year I will go through my jars when I get ready to sterilize them, and I will check for nicks, cracks, breaks, anything. Then I have to throw those in the trash. They will bust, okay? So you cannot use those. Inspect your jars before you do any canning. I have inherited jars. I'm a rebel canner. The canning police is going to come after me probably, but I keep and reuse spaghetti sauce jars that comes from the grocery store. The lids that you pop, you know, your spaghetti sauce jars, not the plastic ones, but the metal, I reuse those because now I do not pressure can with those, because if you've got food that starts siphoning out of your jars, it will pop that seal off. It's easier to pop those off than it is a ring and a band. I mean, a band and a lid. I will only use those jars, reuse those jars for water bathing, okay? Not pressure canning. They're safer. They will suck that seal back down. But I only use them maybe like 2 years in a row. After that, I'll start tossing old jars. And I put my dates on my jars, okay? So I know how many times I've used that jar. So like after 2 years, I'll start tossing them and go to fresher jars. I keep my jars rotated. So you're going to need jars. You're going to need, y'all, my mother-in-law even saved mayonnaise jars. Mayonnaise jars, because some mayonnaise jars are good, high quality glass and thick glass, and your lids and rings that you buy will fit on those. Golden Eagle syrup jars, I've used some of those a few times. Test and see. You're going to need to purchase lids and bands. Now, you can either purchase these separately, because the bands or the rings can be reused, but not the lids, okay? If you have got a lid that you have popped off and it's created a dent in that rubber seal on it, throw it away. It will not reseal. If you have one that the jar just didn't seal all the way, check the rubber gasket around that. It's just a little flat lid. Flat, okay? Check that rubber gasket inside that lid. If there's no indentation in that little rubber seal and you don't see anything wrong with it, you can try to reuse that lid. Always inspect your equipment before you start any of these processes, okay? You can keep using bands or rings until maybe they start getting rusty or something, then start throwing them away. Your lids, the little flat ones that has the rubber seal on the inside, you're going to have to keep purchasing those. You can either purchase the lids and the bands separately, or they could go in a set in a taller box, and it'll say on the box what's in it. You're going to need some equipment like it's a jar lifter. I wish I had my equipment here. It's a jar lifter. It's a little contraption like some tongs that you put on your jar, you pinch it, and you lift your jars out of the hot water. Never stick your hands or try to get a hot jar out of a water bath canner or a pressure bath canner. You will burn yourself. Even sometimes with an oven mitt, okay? If you're trying to get it out of a water bath, then you're going to get your oven mitt wet, okay? Use your jar lifter, please. I've had burnt fingers before. See, just stupidity on my part. A jar lifter, a funnel. There's different kinds of jars you can get. You can get wide mouth or you can get regular mouth. And they're called regular mouth jars. If you're trying to put something chunky in there and you're doing a regular mouth lid, a jar, you're going to need like a funnel, okay? Wide mouth jars, you can stick your whole hand in there. You don't have to use a funnel for those unless you just want to, unless it's something messy. Let's see. You can get like the little magnet stick. They've got like accessory kits that you can buy. I'll try to find some and put them down in the description box below. It's a canning kit. It'll come with a funnel, a jar lifter, a debubbler. Kind of looks like a little ruler with a little ladder at the end of it. That's got like your inches on it. And that is how you measure your headspace when you put your food and your liquid in your jar. I go more into depth on that on my canning videos. It's called a debubbler. I think that's what it's called. And then a little magnet that's on the end of a stick, where some people sterilize their lids before they put them on their jars. Some people don't. But if you've got them in some hot water sitting on your stove, you're going to need that little magnet to reach down in there, grab that lid, and it'll stick to that little magnet, and you can take it out and put it on your jar. Let's see. Trying to think if there's anything else I have. I don't think there's anything else I have. So the basics to preserving is your two things. What you've got space for, to know, well, I don't have a big freezer, so if I want to preserve this food for longer shelf life, I may just get the canning equipment. Canning equipment is going to be a whole lot less expensive than a freezer, okay? And then a vacuum sealer, all right? And vice versa. If you've got pantries, if you've got freezers, don't have enough pantry space, then freeze your food. Just know that your texture and your taste is going to be different. Flash freeze some things before you try to freeze it to get some of that bitter taste out, and it will crisp up better or fry up better. I've even got a video where I'm cutting up squash and zucchini according to how I cook it. And you can look at that video. I fry some. I throw some in stir fries. I throw shredded in egg bites or omelets. Yeah, I will take a vegetable and I will find different ways to cut it up and go ahead and do that process to where that way all I got to do is look for it in my freezer and say, here's some shredded squash. I'm gonna throw this in some egg bites or some omelets. Here is some cubed up squash. I'm going to take this out and throw it in a stir fry. Here is some rounds squash that I cut up in rounds. I'm going to make some scalloped squash and zucchini, or fried rounds. Or yeah, fried, deep fried, just like potato chip or potatoes. Okay, I sometimes will process mine as to how I'm going to cook it. Let's see. Know what kind of equipment you got to have. Know how you're going to process it. Know that it's going to taste different. Try to save up to purchase the equipment that you might need. Do your research. Read your manuals no matter what you buy. And play around with your food. I know we were told all of our life not to play with our food. But guess what? You can play with your food. Play with your food. Know which ones needs to be processed. Water bathing, pressure canning. Weigh your pros and cons. Okay? Even if you've got a garden, weigh your pros and cons. Are you getting enough yield for all that labor and expenses? If not, go get it at the grocery store, unless you just like getting out there sweating your tail off and digging up all those taters, okay? More power to you. Know your pros and cons. Is it cheaper to just go buy it? Now, granted, I do have to say broccoli and cauliflower. I can go and buy a bag of broccoli that's been flash frozen for $1 a bag, y'all. That I've got to the point where I'm downsizing my garden. That's where you need to go back and think economically. If you have to, I'm downsizing, because by the time I purchase the plants, 6 plants, okay? I think for summer prices, when I go to buy all my plants for a little 6 flat, I think it may be like $3 for 6 plants that you plant in the ground. Now, one year I planted 30 broccoli plants, 30 cauliflower plants. I think by the time the deer got done eating all my broccoli and cauliflower plants down, I wound up with 5 broccoli plants, 6 cauliflower plants. I was so upset, y'all. I purchased all those plants. We did all that tilling. My husband helped me make all the holes, helped me planted them. We babied them. We covered the ground with hay to keep the weeds out, so I wouldn't have to hoe as much, or he wouldn't have to hoe as much. The cost of fertilizer, $1 a bag for some broccoli. It's not looking too shabby, y'all. It's more economical now that I can go and buy 10 bags of already processed, and the labor and everything, and the cost, $1 a bag. So I'm downsizing our garden. For one, for health reasons. I can't keep up like I used to could. I get a lot of help in our garden, but I'm getting older. Health reasons, I am having to downsize. There is some things I will continue to grow as long as I have the help and as long as I can. And that is, I've got down to my staples. Well, I will continue to grow corn. There is nothing like growing corn and going out there and picking your own corn. We got a system going that it doesn't take us long at all. Shucking that corn, bringing it in. Oh my gosh, y'all. I freeze our corn. You can do, I'm going to throw this in. You can corn and you can freeze it. I tried canning corn one year and it was a mess. Corn everywhere in my canner. I didn't do something right or something. It was coming out of my jars, and my jars were so sticky. I like to have never got sticky corn off of my jars. Like to have never got the lids off of my jars because the sugar crystallized and became hard, and I like to have never got lids and bands off of my jars to even open them up. I said, never again. So I found a quicker way. I researched and researched and researched quick way of freezing corn. So here's a tip for you. I got a video on this of how we do our corn. He will go out there, pick the corn. He'll start shucking it. He'll bring me in 5-gallon buckets. I will dump them in the sink, and I will automatically start washing them and silking them under the water. I got a baby bottle brush, the scrubber, and I will silk them. I'll lay them over on my counter. They're clean. I'll lay them on a towel. They're clean. I will go through this whole process. You better do corn really quick, and you better do it all in one day, because if you leave it on the cob and if you leave it laying out, you got to get it put up. It will start dehydrating really quick. If I have to wait till the next day to finish my corn, do you know where my corn goes? After I wash it, I will take it and put it in water somewhere. I'll either wash out my buckets, fill it up with some corn that I haven't got to yet, and keep it underwater and keep it hydrated. Okay? You cannot let your corn start drying out on you, or you've ruined every bit of it. We did a bunch that way one year. Y'all, I have even had cobs of corn in my bathtub, keeping them soaked, because we had so much corn one year, and I had to keep them underwater before I could get to them. And I mean, I was working quickly, and my mother-in-law and who we call grandmother came to help me that day. They knew I was getting behind, and I was so upset. They came to help me finish my corn, y'all, before I ruined it all. And you got to keep it hydrated. So I will take my corn on a cob, raw, after I've cleaned it and silked it, and we will put it on the cob in vacuum sealer bags, and we'll probably do like 3 to 4 to 6 ears of corn in a bag. We'll vacuum seal it. Now, you don't have to blanch it, because believe it or not, corn, after it's been frozen, it's still crispy. It's still crunchy. Okay, I tested it, and I know this. And this is how I know this is how we're going to do our corn, and it's going to be this way from now on. And we've done it this way from now on. I will take a bag out of the frozen ears. I'll let it defrost, and I can either take, if I want corn on a cob, I will leave it in those bags. I will either boil it like you normally do corn on a cob, or those vacuum seal bags is microwave safe too for steaming. I will take that corn, I will open up that bag, release the pressure, get some air in there, and just put that bag in there in my microwave and cook the corn on a cob inside that vacuum seal bag for about 3 minutes, and then I'll flip it over and I'll do the other side. Y'all, that's some of the best fine eating corn on a cob I've ever tasted. Now, if you want to get some more flavors in it, then you can put it and boil it in salt, boil it in some butter. Do that if you want to. You can take it out, throw it on the grill with some butter. Now, if my husband wants cream-style corn, you can do it the old-fashioned way. You can take a knife and cut your kernels off and then scrape the cob. The milk from the cob is what creates your cream-style corn, okay? I will put up the corn, but I will process it according to how we're going to eat it. If he wants cream-style corn, I'll do that. If we want whole kernel corn, after it's thawed out, I'll just go and cut the kernels off the cob. This way, I spent 1 year processing corn the old way. I would put up some corn on the cob. Then I sat in the floor, threw in some Hallmark movies, and I spent an entire day cutting corn off the cob into bowls, okay? This was so time-consuming, y'all. And I had corn everywhere. I had a big old sheet laid down in my floor, in my carpet, so I wouldn't get corn splattered everywhere. I still got some corn splattered, like on my furniture, on me. I mean, juice was up, y'all. I was like, y'all, there's got to be an easier way to do this. So that's how I learned how to do it this way. And then just cut it off according to how I'm going to cook it that night. Okay? My process goes a whole lot. I cut out a step right there by saving it and leaving it on the cob. If you leave it on the cob and you freeze it, it actually keeps its moisture. It doesn't dry out as quick. Okay? So there's a good little gardening tip for y'all. Preserving tip right there for y'all. Let's see, how else? Let's see, corn. Okay, my staples that we're keeping in the garden is corn. We will continue to grow corn. We might downsize to just 2 rows by the time everybody leaves my house and we're empty nesters. Corn, we'll continue to grow that. We will continue to grow green beans. There is just something different between a home canned green bean, a homegrown green bean that knows you buying the cans at the store. When my children were little, they knew the difference. They liked my mother-in-law's green beans and my green beans when I learned how to do them in the pressure canner. Now my granddaughters. Y'all, my granddaughters can clean out a quart jar between them at one meal. I want some more. I want some more. They love them, okay? We will continue to grow those. They're easy for me, okay? They're easy to grow, easy to process. Corn, green beans, tomatoes. I have to keep growing tomatoes. Y'all, it is not economical to go and buy tomatoes even from a farmer's market. I'm sorry. The prices are a little high, okay? 99 cents a pound. And if you've got as much to make as I do out of tomatoes, y'all, I could spend $500. But that's just not economical for me. One big tomato can be a pound, y'all. That's 99 cents just for one tomato. I'm sorry, but economically, that's not for me. We go and I plant at least 50 tomato plants. I plant a lot because of what I have to do. Then I plant just a little extra in case the deer gets in my garden again. Or something happens. We lost about 10 one year, 10 plants due to a storm that just come through and blew everything over, corn stalks and all. We were just kind of devastated at what this storm did. But they still managed to grow even when they're leaning over this way. They still managed to grow. We tied our tomato plants back up. Had to take off what was broken. And clean our tomato plants up. But y'all, economically, I will continue to grow tomato plants because I do so much with my tomatoes. Like I said, I do salsa. I feel like I'm spitting all over myself, y'all. Spaghetti sauce. We go through spaghetti sauce. We make our own pizzas. I go through pizza sauce, salsa, enchilada sauce. I mean, tomatoes to go with chilies and soups and stews. I have to grow my tomatoes. Peppers. We will continue to grow peppers. We cook with a lot of peppers. We do pizzas with our peppers. We do main dishes with peppers. We cook with peppers. So we will continue to grow those. And there's only one certain type that we will grow too because we love them. We love the taste of them. So I've narrowed it down economically, labor-wise, all that good stuff to 4 of our basic essentials. The other essentials that we like to eat and I like to preserve, we go buy them from the store. Know your pros and cons. Get you a game plan going. If you think that you want to start next year, start saving up to get you the equipment that you need. Start doing your research. Start figuring out how you're going to preserve these to know what to buy. Some people freeze tomatoes. Yeah, some people will take green tomatoes and slice them up into rounds like fried green tomatoes and will can them. And then when it comes time to water bathing them, when it comes time to cook them, they just take them out of the jars, then dredge them in their mixtures and then fry them. Check into how you want to preserve your food. Y'all, that's how I learned. And then by trial and error. I kind of like this canned better than I do freezing it because the taste and the texture. Do your research, y'all. Have a game plan. Read. Save up money to buy what you need. Experiment. Play with your food. Y'all, this is what our channel is about. We do gardening. We do, we put out content. We have a family blog, 2 blogs actually, but they have the same content on them. We hunt, we fish, we grow a garden, we can. We try to be as self-sufficient as we can. On our blog, we also discuss homeschooling. I homeschooled our children for the first 6 years of their education till they decided they wanted away from me and went to public school. So, go figure. Who wants to get away from their mom? I'm lovable. Okay. Anyway, we do homeschooling. I love to homeschool. I wish they would have let me continue to homeschool them all the way to graduation. I wouldn't have cared one bit. But they were heavily involved in athletics, and at that time, our state didn't include homeschool children in their athletic programs. So we let them go. I didn't want to hold them back. But we do all kinds of this content, y'all. I share a lot of things that I hope that helps other people, especially self-sufficiency, things that you want to get into. Y'all check out our blog. I will link it in the description box below. Go up to the header and all of our different pages. I used to I owned goats at one time, and I raised goats. I love goats. Since I was little, I had some baby goats when I was little. Grew up on a farm. There's information on those. Cheese making. I milked them. They were dairy goats. I raised them for 10 years until I could not physically do it anymore. A 200-pound animal, I can't wrestle with them anymore. So I was having some health issues at the moment. So I had a best friend that took all of my herds for me and finished raising them for me. I used the milk. We drank I drank the milk, and one of our sons drank the milk, and a cousin, our oldest one, he could tell it was goat's milk. I didn't care if I put in a milk jug, a cow milk jug or not. He could tell. He could taste the difference. I loved the milk. It was better for me. I have an autoimmune disease. The milk was better for me. It wasn't pasteurized. I mean, it wasn't, pasteurized. It wasn't homogenized, whatever. Okay, it was raw, and it was better for me. I made cheeses. I was getting into experimenting with ice cream and stuff. We drank it, cooked with it, everything. We used the milk. That was worth my time and energy. But that door closed in my life due to health issues. So I had to, but we put out content like this. We've done a lot of things. I try to help people. It's all on our blog. You can see our pages up at the top. Check out our blogs. I'll list those in the description box below. If you like this video, if you like this content, you want to learn more, check out our YouTube, check out our other videos on our channel, check out our 2 blogs if you'd rather read it instead of watch it, whatever. I cover a lot of things. Self-sufficient living, health alternatives. That's another video I'm going to do another day. I'll put out a video, other health alternatives, natural alternatives to chemical medication. I'll just go ahead and tell you right now, no, I'm not against chemical medication because I do have to rely on one chemical medication for my condition. Other ailments, I will check into oral natural remedies or essential oils before I grab something over the counter or something like that. That's a different video. But if you've liked this video and you like this content, you like our channel, hit the subscribe button, give us a like, shout out in some comments, tell us some more content you might be interested in seeing that you think that we can do. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope this is kind of gave you a guide as to where to go on preserving your food. Check out the other methods that even we don't use. Those might interest you better. Just do your research and look up things. I hope y'all have enjoyed this video. I hope I haven't bored you too much. I love to talk. I'm sorry, but I like to help people too. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you like our channel, and come back for more videos later. Thank you. Y'all have a blessed day.